I'm going to hand it all over to them, and you guys get started.
All right, thank you very much, Tina. So I'm Christina Getz, and I work at Caring Treatment Centers. Not only do I oversee a lot of our prevention services and work with ESAP teams, I also serve as a liaison to some of our school districts in the Berks County area. So I've worked with ESAP teams at all different points in time, some when they're just getting started and some that have been established. So I hope to bring to you guys some information and some things that hopefully you're looking for. You know, you guys got here paying just for this, so I hope I answer all your questions. I know, no pressure at all. I'll just be quizzing you afterward on what you needed. But I just want to get a show of hands from the group here. How many of you currently have an ESAP team in your school district or that you're working with? Okay, so we have some that already have an ESAP team. And how many of you came because you're hoping that you can get an ESAP team up and running? Okay, awesome. Wonderful.
You raised your hand twice. We have one.
We say we have one, but we also kind of need to get it running. Like I said, I've worked with lots of different schools, so I've seen all of those scenarios of we have one where we say we have ESAP, but we don't really do a whole lot with that, and we want to kind of know what to do with that and move from there. So I'm going to try to do this. Why don't we get started?
So my name is Juan Suarez, principal of Lafayette Elementary School. I'm very proud of Lafayette Elementary School. Can I just really quickly, we can just go around the room. My elementary side is coming up. I'd just like to know who my audience is so that we can kind of target our discussions as we go along. And what we're going to do is at 4 o'clock, you're going to get a stretch break. I get it. It's all learners. There's snacks out there. They're going to need to move. So we just really quickly.
Sure. I'm Lauren Madia. I'm kind of in both realms of this conference because I work with the 7th and 8th graders as a school counselor, but I'm also student support services curriculum leader for our district in Everson.
Middle school. I wasn't an assistant principal at a middle school. That's a whole other world. Yeah, sure.
I'm Shelby Johnson. I'm a staff liaison on Clarion County.
I'm John Oster. I'm the Student Assistance Program Supervisor, the Homeless Liaison, the Teen Parenting Coordinator at Pennsylvania South Charter School.
And all other duties are assigned by your school.
Yeah. And we have ESAP, but we switched from teams of elementary, middle, and high school to regions because we have the charter of the whole county. So when it comes to community services, it's harder for us to know 65 counties instead of 15 or 20. But my problem is I can't convince any of our elementary teachers to join me.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that.
Joe Martellini, I'm Lehigh County Assistant Administrator for Lehigh County SCA for Drug and Alcohol, oversee SAP, SAD, prevention and intervention. We have some SAP teams, but they struggle.
I'm from Armstrong, Indiana, Marion, Drug and Alcohol.
just want to say my daughter goes to Northeastern. She's in high school. I should have just said that. I was like, Northeastern, Manchester, Northeastern? Okay.
Devin Moyer, Avery Principal, and similar to what Jean was saying, we're really working on bridging that gap, but we're also trying to be very proactive in the process we're doing. And as of next year, we'll be implementing tier one mental health curriculum and everything as well. So we're trying to get all the pieces together.
Tom Wysocki, I'm 12, I'm a TBIS trainer and
so whoever your team leader is, come with an agenda prepared, all ready to go with the student names and your case managers already ready to share out. I think that helps us. It gives a nice visual. We put it on the screen for everybody to see. Once you do that, it kind of forces people to stay to the agenda.
Said something so simple as post meeting.
Yes.
So we had a high school meeting in our whole school. They're outside the main office, and the girls have to stand there. Just overheard all this stuff. And Dad just almost threw us out.
Absolutely. And that's the purpose of it. I didn't say I was going to be earth shattering, right? But maybe just some friendly reminders of things that we must do and things that sometimes we just overlook because we're so busy going. We really need to just pause when it comes to this and make sure that we get it right.
Yeah, the only reason we really shut that out is one of those kids got told there in school. This is what happened. So everyone in the meeting was like, so I had to go in and talk to them about that. But it's a simple thing.
Absolutely.
You're shutting the door every time.
Now they
It's like a birthday experience, like,
Nobody forgets that,
No
right?
one.
gets in and they
First thing you do.
Shut the door.
And I just wanted to interject before we move on. When I've done SAC liaison work at elementary, middle school, and high school, so the reason I'm so passionate about elementary work is exactly that early intervention, because I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting with a family of a high school senior, and we're going through all the concerns that they have, and I'm like, okay, so is this new? This is new behavior? You know, what are the changes? Oh, no. They've been like this in second grade. We've had these problems, and I'm like, if someone would have just done something at that elementary level, perhaps we would be sitting here having this meeting, but this kid might not graduate, and now it's an issue, and now it's a crisis for that family. So that's why I'm so passionate in the districts that I work in and the schools that I work with to say, get that elementary team up and running so we can identify these kids when that issue comes up in second grade and connect that family to the resources they need. So hopefully we're not having that meeting, at the high school level.
Our senior handbook. I just, how often do you, like once a month, once a year, every Tuesday? Okay.
Do you have the agency present to review too, or?
So we have partner agencies, but the agencies are not necessarily there. So I have 4 school-based counselors that are at our school, but they meet with my school counselor, so she basically plays on with them, what she does.
They don't get, because they wouldn't get paid to come there. That was one of our barriers. So they do that during the school day with us, which is really great because they have time and we talk about all of the students that they currently see. They're also, for kids that they don't see within our building, they're a great resource for us too. They always know the ins and outs, what psychiatrist has openings, things like that.
Yeah, definitely tap into your agency, especially your school-based counseling agency. We work closely with Nessa, but I know there's many different agencies out there, and that's a fantastic way to get counselors in your building. Parents only have to come for the intake appointment at school where they're familiar with school. Even if it's in town, parents
To town, because it's after school, it's another trip that they have to do. The counselors see the kids right at school is what they do, and it's just convenient for the parents, and then it does happen, and the kids get the benefit of having counseling at school.
Did I hear you say you have 4 school-based counselors
I do.
in your one elementary school?
Yeah, my one big elementary school.
Okay,
I do.
so that was maybe not the question.
I beg and plead, but I only have one school counselor that the district allocates for. So that's where you have to get creative, right? So
Right.
that's a barrier where I know that my kids need more counseling, so
Right,
I.
but when you're talking about school-based counseling, that's just one-on-one counseling.
Yes.
Yes.
Not,
One-on-one
I mean, we
counseling.
know that
Your caseload at this point in time is up to about 100. What our student, and this is not all referrals from inside ESAP, these are parent concerns. They come in wanting their kids, our parents don't have access, a lot of them to vehicles to get even across town. So we've made it very convenient. Some of our school-based counselors have a tiny little closet area, and they're okay with that.
Office space.
I know, but it's like, but they love it and they're glad to be there. Anytime that we go on a waiting list, then we call the agency, work with Amy Marinik through the district, to talk to the agency as well, and see if we can get someone at least part-time to come in.
Okay. And I know the other coordinator in my district came actually down to Lancaster. And can you speak a little, and I might be getting you off topic, but was this all developed from some type of health council or board, bringing in these school-based counselors? Can you speak to how?
I can't speak to how it all started with the
Okay.
district. I can tell you, I've been in the district for 17 years, and every building I've worked at, we've had some type of community agency support and some kind of school-based counseling in the buildings. It varies. I'll be honest with you, as an administrator, I will beg, plead, I am not beyond that if that's what my kids need. So I will do that. So I am one for those of you that are liaisons, for those of you that have any type of power, go straight to the director of the agency and talk to them. I know I have to work within my district, but there's something about developing personal relationships with people, and I just go beg, plead, and make my case and why I should get that additional counselor. Because there's always competition, right? And I'm like, I promise you give me a counselor, I will fill them up. And we do, and we're filled up right now.
Yes.
And I'm getting a new one.
Stacy, I actually went to Lancaster during that meeting.
Oh, you went with Julie?
Yeah, and basically, your school did something that I wish our school district would do. They said,
Right, yeah, that's.
we're gonna dump $1 million into this, and we're gonna have our own school-based counselors. And I think like a lot of our districts heard that, but, you know.
Oh, you're talking about the SFRSs.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, they're
different.
Well,
The
is
student
your school
family
employee,
visas.
doesn't employ your school?
No, my school-based counselors are
They work for
TW
you.
Conesto,
Right.
and it's through health, through insurance. Our current superintendent last year and our school board just approved for student family resource specialists.
Right, that's another.
And,
Which is a great
and we
resource for
were,
us as
every
well.
school was allocated one and whatnot, which is fantastic. And they come with a whole different set of.
Prior to working to the school district of Lancaster, just so that may help you answer your question, I worked for Lincoln Charter School in Newark. So I just built a connection with Children's Home of Newark that was at the time, talked to their directors, got the board on, talked to our administrators, and they agreed to do this. So when Presley Ridge took over Children's Home of York, they stayed in within our school. So it was always a great resource to have then too.
People are willing to.
Yeah, we have Presley Ridge,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
with us, but one of the questions, I mean, as we were going through the SAP training, like the initial piece of having that agency on was to do like the screening piece. So are you still going through a screening piece with those kids through the agency then, or are they basically just going right into therapy? Like how does that work?
We have a student support process within our building. So it's a smaller group of people that are actually on this SAP team. We get a referral from the teacher, or it could be somebody in the community, it could be a parent, and we discuss at that point, okay, does this student need to go through the support process for behavior and academics, or do they need to go to ESAP? So we as a team decide, we kind of funnel it, because what happens is, as a school counselor, you know, they're coming to me all the time. So we're walking around with the clipboard, say, okay, fill out your referral, and give it to me when you're finished. I get the referrals, they come by email, or I get them hard copy, and then I schedule a meeting with our team. Well, actually, we meet every sixth day with our interventionist, it's our school psychologist, it's our exceptional student specialist, and our social worker, and we decide at that point, we review everything that's on that referral, look at some of the data from eSchool, and decide, where does this go? Because otherwise, we're just gonna be hammered with hundreds of kids at that point. So we just make the best decision for that student that time.
That, I know what you're talking about with that, like a formal kind of screening sort of thing. But in elementary school, I find that it really, it's different in elementary.
It is.
Really?
That's why we're here. Like, I've been through high school SAP, you know.
If you have your group of your SAP team, or in Bethlehem, the MTSS/SAP team, and they have, a referral has been made, and that team, you know, we talk about, well, in school, out of school counseling, or we use our liaison. Our meetings are set up a little bit different than Lancaster has them, but it's not a matter of, the therapy services are sort of a short-term period. And we don't make a decision between whether or not they should get services. It's this, okay, they need services, let's give them this therapeutic services. If they need some counseling after that short-term period, which is what they provide in the school, then another referral would be made. We don't like do a checklist or anything like that. It's kind of how, because the kids in elementary school, the way that they're behaving, their behavior tells us that things aren't right. It's not, they're not gonna.
They're communicating to us.
They're communicating, right. They're not, it's not like drugs and alcohol where you might have that, it's more, you can see it in that way. Really, when we have an elementary school kid who is in pain or in needs care in some way, it's their behavior, so.
This is really.
So, because we have, we have focused on our like PBIS team and our tier 2 intervention team. So, we are very apt and we have, the kids come in, we choose where they go, what program. What we're struggling in is, and we don't have a formal SAP program in place, but with just looking at the behavior, we do a universal screener at tier 1, which is the SRSS. But what we don't find that we have is we're lacking the internalizers, like for those internalizing kids, the shy, the withdrawn, the anxiety, where a lot of the more mental health stuff is, we feel like we have so much support for our externalizing kids. And so we're like, I think this is where SAP kind of fits in, but how do we?
Well, I think the classroom teacher, they have the relationship with the students, and if they see that there's a problem, then they fill out the request,
Right.
which is
And
what
we're
we
gonna
have.
talk
They
about
fill out
that.
the request. It's the teacher who has, what they are observing,
Right.
whether or not that's a external or internal.
Right. And at elementary level, it really is, and as an administrator, at the beginning of the year and throughout the year, I remind my teachers, it is your responsibility to know your kids, and not just academically, but socially, emotionally, what's happening at home. I expect them to have a connection with that family, is what I expect them to do. And that's how we have conversations about what's happening. We're gonna keep moving on, and this is good conversation, and like I said, we all have a lot to give and take and share, so thank you so much for opening up and sharing. I think we're gonna get to address some of these questions when you start to see who are the people that we even include as part of our team members to be SAP, because we were worried about how do we get teachers to be a part of it. My secretaries are a part of the SAP team, because they're at the front office, and parents come in, and they talk, and they're much more comfortable with them. And sometimes your support staff lives right within the community, and they give me the heads up on things, is what they do, and things that I perhaps wouldn't pick up on. My secretaries know those things. So we're gonna even talk about who to include in your SAP team, and that starts to take care of some of those things. How do we know what, that's how you start to find out. But you have to be real strategic is what you have to do, even in setting up, and it's just like, it sounds real basic, like close the door, but who you even include as part of your team is critical. Because you want to have a diverse team is what you want to have. Because then everybody looks at it through a different lens, and they bring something to the table. And everybody connects to kids in different ways. So I might have a connection with this child, and I may be really allergic to this family, right? Because I may not be the right person to be the case manager for that family, because I've been the one who unfortunately has suspended a child, assigned them to the teacher that they didn't want this year, whatever the case may be, and I need to be able to have someone else on the team, that good cop, bad cop, that family does connect with. So even who you decide to include as to who will be a part of your team. What we want to do is, because we have to get up, because it's 3 o'clock. If you will just indulge us, and we have some charts already up, we have some markers. If you could just, what does at risk mean to you, so that we can have a common definition moving forward throughout the presentation. And we're going to talk about the transitions and some of the changes, crises, and then what does this look like in your specific building. So if you could just we want them to count off or just
go.
get up, pick a chart?
Introduce your chart, and in your group, you can kind of brainstorm what that means to you.
What are at-risk factors?
So we got 4 different spots.
This way, sorry.
No, you're fine. We'll
Good. Come on.
go this way, no worries.
Got it. Good.
I was waiting to get some bright cherry colors for the afternoon. You get blinded when you walk backwards. Yeah. But what do you think? When you think of at risk, you start brainstorming your ideas. Whatever, kind of whatever that means, you guys can just kind of jot down your ideas.
No, try it like this. So we have fluency.
So chronic is a different process. So these are at-risk factors. So we're talking about poverty,
Is that, I'm gonna put that under as an example?
No, that's just another one.
Okay.
Drug and alcohol.
Change in hygiene.
Yes.
Mental health problems.
Yes, yes. Helping themselves and helping the family as well.
Living with like grandparents.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm just actually am doing a group in so in elementary.
Yeah.
Yes, in our county, I haven't started working too closely, it's a newer agency to the county, so still making progress, the mental health order could be some problem rates and, driving for some to happen.
Yes, so they're raising
Parent incarceration.
yes, so they're raising the younger siblings in the criminal.
Right. Transit.
Yeah.
No,
We did, yeah.
Okay.
So much. Changing, I will tell you. You have fun with that one. Write really fast and nobody will know.
Well, we're moving around.
Come on. I had faith that you could have spotted it.
But I could still hear.
All right.
Second part. Oh, that's actually.
Crying.
All right, let's take a quick minute to wrap up your thoughts. And this room, I know it's not real low. It is not conducive to moving around. But if that group over there doesn't mind walking over to look at this chart, and if this group could just move over here, that would be great.
Look at what the other groups came up with.
Oh, yeah.
I'm already thinking, we're gonna have to.
You're going that way.
That's all right.
Municipality agreement, you're good.
We have a lot of 4th through 6th graders.
Yeah, see, I'm not seeing.
Older siblings.
Are we supposed to be out on this?
Absolutely. Feel free to add on, or
We don't need it.
you're probably doing some things that you had on your list.
But to be honest, I haven't heard anything in that school either. I think it's because like there's about and then they like talk off. You okay?
Yeah. I thought that it was to critique the answer. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, think of that. Yeah, why did we put that on? All right, go ahead and switch over. It's just a quick look.
Keep going. Give us some extra.
I feel like that's a,
It's a huge red flag. Let them go, Jennifer.
Okay.
Let them go.
I'm the talker in the group. You're the guy with the talker in the group, I'm not.
See, I'm the timekeeper.
yeah, I feel like
Where they're in and all stuff.
Oh, yeah, or my parent lives in one district.
All right, head back to your seats. So lots of similarities amongst your charts. You know what the average factors are. So where do we begin and where do we go from here? Because we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. And we kind of figured we'd come up with a pretty inclusive list and we'd all have that in common. Despite the fact that we're all at different schools, different areas, we're seeing a lot of the same patterns and trends is what we're seeing. So where do we begin? Where do we start with all of this?
Great. Start at the very beginning, right? So the first thing, if you are trying to get an elementary team up and running, look in your building. Do you have anyone who is already SAP trained? Maybe someone transferred from another district, they were trained there. Do you have somebody that maybe was a secondary teacher and came down to elementary, or a school counselor that moved? Perhaps they were trained. If they were trained prior to the SAP being, certification being K through 12, there is a bridge training that is online that they can do to get that inclusive K through 12, if they just have a secondary SAP certification, or vice versa, if they would just have an elementary one and you're looking at secondary, they can do the same thing so that they can get that inclusive K to 12. So kind of start with, what do we already have, do we know? And I also encourage schools, just put it out there to all staff, because you think you know or you're not sure, but they might be like, oh yeah, you know what? 10 years ago, I think I went through that training, and just see who you have that might be interested. Look to your middle and high school to get ideas, what works well in their programs, what pieces that they use can we bring down to the elementary. I think for parents, it's really helpful if the SAP programs in the schools look similar at the elementary, middle, and high school, whether it's branding, you know, with the school logo or whatever, but that way when the parents are hearing it in an elementary school, maybe if they're not quite ready for that SAP process, or they, you know, are kind of saying, no, I don't think we need anything right now, maybe by the time they get to a middle school, they're at least familiar with it. They've heard about this SAP thing, maybe now I'm willing to do it. So the more that we can make our district kind of inclusive and our SAP teams working together, and also that helps with that information sharing. Passing along when those students move up to the next building. Here's the kids that have been SAP referred, you know, as 5th graders, and now they're moving to the middle school. Just kind of like a heads up, here's some kids that have struggled. Maybe they won't be referred at the middle school, but just so you kind of know, these are some of the kids that we've kind of been working with.
Or if you have a family that has an elementary, middle, and high school, it's nice if they're receiving the same information across the board, because a lot of times we bombard the parents and we're all doing something very different. So we as a system should try to coordinate to support that family, because they're already dealing with some heavy-duty issues, and we know that. And we don't want to be a barrier as a system.
Absolutely. The sooner those parents know that student assistance program exists, because like I said, I work at different levels and I work with secondary teams, and parents are like, well, I have a kid at the elementary school, do we have a SAP program there? And usually I'm going to be like, oh yeah, absolutely there is, and you know, and pass that information along. But it always upsets me when parents don't realize that it is at the different buildings. Or I'm working with the elementary kid, and they're like, oh, well, I have a kid at the middle school. Do you have groups there? Can I get my older child involved in that? So the more that we can kind of put that information out district-wide to our parents and let them know that it's there at all those different levels, the better it is.
Yeah, marketing is so important. I always talk to them when I'm doing the staff training. Put it on your website, your web page. If your page says, you know, elementary, secondary, put it on each one of their pages there. And also who to access after school, who's on the staff team. And also I always tell teachers, sell it to your school board. Because every year that school board is changing. And that new member that comes on, they might not have any kids. They don't know anything about that. And to do a presentation every single year with your school board, teaching them what's going on, what are the needs of the kids, and how you are working with them. Because they're the ones that have the money, they're the ones who decide what programs are going, who's gonna be staff trained, where they're gonna get the money to do that. And if they're not on board, your team is not gonna, prosper as much as they can.
Yeah, and I've done that a lot of times on behalf of teams, or they, you know, as working with the schools, I've encouraged them to go to their board. You know, that's how that money gets divided. You know, if we wanna try to bring in some type of prevention program or whatever it is that we think our students really need, we gotta show that we've got these kids that are.
And also,
that need it.
when kids get the report cards and the parents come to see the teachers, but they have to sign in that they can't see that teacher, have a staff flyer there and hand it out to them. Here's what we have, you know, here's how you can go about it. Maybe even if you know somebody else in your community that has a child, that they can make that referral to the staff, you could give a best interest in that child.
We gave you the brochure, we gave you a yellow brochure. Within our materials, I believe within the conference website, it'll be there electronically, or so that you can just put your logo on it, or do what you need to do, so that you don't have to reinvent anything. Just take it, use it, make it yours, make it happen. But it's another way to market and advertise.
There's a custom article one for parents on the side.
On the state staff website, and there's a lot of resources there, I'll have that at the end, of some of the other resources as well. Right, but you can kind of put it out there, but yeah, having some type of flyer that can go home to parents. I know I've had some schools that at report card time, they put it right in with the report card, and they know it's going home to every parent. Whether they read it or not, who knows, but at least we're getting that information out there.
Yeah. And the only thing that I didn't see in everybody's chart is that whole social media aspect also. And social media can also be an at-risk factor, but we can also use it to our benefit to get information out. So who should be a member of the ESAP team? Your principal, your assistant principal, your school counselor, your school nurse. Our school nurse, she case manages, she has kids that go to her every day for medication, so she builds relationships with kids and has conversations. Even though they may be short conversations, she can tell when they're having a good day, not a good day, if something is happening there. She could tell about that hygiene and what's happening is what she could do, or hygiene is deteriorating. Your classroom teachers, your agency SAP liaisons, your instructional coaches with that academic, I saw around here where grades start to slip. So those are the obvious ones. If you go to the next slide. School psychologist, school social worker, your specials teachers, your PE, your art, your music, those teachers, your itinerant learning support teachers, those teachers, think about tapping into them. I have my music teacher, she's wonderful. And there's one kid in our school that everybody really struggles with bonding and building a relationship with her. And my music teacher is just shocked because she's like, but I love her. And I'm like, good, somebody loves this baby. Because we all need that, right? So you just have to make sure, once again, that your team is diverse so that there's always someone there that loves this kid more than anyone else and is going to advocate for them. Perhaps it's your aides, your support staff, your lunch playground staff that you want to tap into, your reading specialists. And like I said before, my school secretaries are phenomenal. And they get information that I would have no idea of what's happening. And it's the same with my support staff will come and they'll be like, hey, Mrs. Suarez, you know they had on the news that shooting that happened? That was so-and-so's uncle that was just murdered, and it happened in front of so-and-so's house. True story, 2 weeks ago at Lafayette that we were dealing with. I found out my building assistant, the support staff came to fill me in. And we needed to make sure that we immediately reached out to those families, reached out to those kids, right? But they knew because they've been trained. And it's hard. It's hard to send people to the ESAP training because it's such a long training and there are no subs. I get it. But here's the reality of it. We will spend our time either proactively or reactively, and we get to choose how we spend that time. So we could either send these people out to get trained, put them on a team, try to work proactively, or we will be reacting all the time. But we will spend our time. One way or the other, we're going to spend our time. But I like to work on the proactive side. So that's how I tend to make choices and decisions. We all have to react, I know and I get it. But as much as we can buffer and work on that proactive side, and no, we're gonna work with these kids regardless, because they're gonna take my time up, one way or the other. Okay, so be strategic again on how you spend your time, who you send to get trained. It's a lot, I get it, it's expensive, I get it, I get all of that. You gotta get subs if it's a classroom teacher. There are no subs, you may have to do split class lists. I've gone in and subbed in classrooms. Make it happen because it is worth your time in the long run.
Are all your members case managers?
Yes.
And how do you get them all to stay after work?
Yes. You know what, if they find, what we have found is, and you can speak to it, from my perspective is, we honor their time. It is only gonna be half an hour. I never go past that half hour. It is just a once a week, half an hour commitment, and they find value to the work.
Everybody wants to be there. We have a very strong union, very strong union in our district. And everybody there, all 13 of us want to be there.
So they are not paid,
They're,
and there is no
it's once a
arrangement.
week, and they know that they're making a difference, and we have every time there's an initiative within our building, it seems like those same 13 people are always the one there, and you have those, but we're slowly bringing more and more people. We have a para who is actually in the life skills class, and she's wonderful, and she's going for her social work degree, and said, I think I really want to do that at ESAP. Like, you guys are doing some great things. I said, well, why don't you go do the training? I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I'm going to get it off for that day. And if one will get me on, yeah. She was like, okay, yeah, let's go. She was the best addition to that team, besides just having the secretaries coming on too. And we had a student just come through. He is, we call him an ELL, ESL, he's different in your district. And we were sitting there and we were planning at that point who would be the case manager. And it's always the ESL teachers say, okay, I'll take him. I always have him in my group. And she stood up, she goes, you know what, I see him every day in the cafeteria. I have all my life skills, because she has kids with Down syndrome, autistic. She's taking them to the nurse to get changed, everything. She says, I see him every day. He always wants to be part of my group and come over and eat lunch with us, or he's always asking questions. Let me take him. And so that has worked out. So just the answer, just quick for you, is you still want to be there.
I do recruiting, I do the training for my staff once a year, at the beginning of the year, and I tell teachers, I'm very honest, I've been with my team for a while now, and I tell them, you know what? I tell my teachers, you can complain, you can gripe, I can send you to get trained. This is even great information as a parent to have and whatnot, and the training stays with you. I'm gonna pay for training, you're gonna get certified, and it's gonna be yours. If you choose to leave me in 2 years, that goes with you on your resume. It doesn't stay with me, it stays with you. So I'm gonna invest in you if you commit to just be a part of the team.
So you promote to your staff?
I do promote to my staff, yep. Remember when I told you I'm not afraid to beg or plead if it's good for my kids? I will beg and plead if it's good for my kids, whatnot. And I will do that with my teachers, whatnot. So I've been very fortunate that it's worked. We are a very union-strong district, but I do take care of my teachers too, right? Because they take care of the kids, and I have to take care of them. So I take it very seriously to take care of my staff, and in turn, they work very hard for me. And I'm very thankful and grateful for
Well,
that.
you should give another session.
What you do to us?
That is a whole nother session.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, and making sure that you're looking at this list, to be creative for those people who maybe you don't need a sub for in order for them to go to that training.
Right.
So I know, especially with like special teachers, I had a couple elementary schools that I was helping them get started with their teams, and they picked a bunch of their special teachers. One, they see all the students in the building, so they're familiar with them, but it was easier to get them out than one of the second grade teachers. But I've had some districts that try to pick, can we get at least like one person from each grade, and they can kind of report back information to that grade level. But be creative. Who are those people that maybe we can kind of be creative with and get them to the training?
And think outside the box, and teachers really do want to do the right thing. I think teachers, if they feel that if it's worth their time, I really believe that teachers will do it. I really do. So, team roles, and Jen talked about this earlier. The team leader sets the agenda, they keep the team on task, they keep the meetings moving. So Ms. Dugan is really good about that, she always has the agenda, and she always keeps us on task, she always makes sure that we're moving along is what we're doing. The recorder is our exceptional student specialist, but make sure you just have someone on the team that is gonna maintain a spreadsheet of all the kids referred to staff, and that documents everything that's happening in your meetings, is what we do. Case managers, we do assign kids to case managers. I myself am a case manager for kids. All district employee team members are eligible, so anyone who's a district employee who's on your team is eligible to be a case manager. You asked that earlier of our support staff, of our secretaries. They do case manage, and the case manager reports to the team. Anything else on roles?
I just say, we use Schoology a lot, it's just password protected, and only the people that are in SAP are on Schoology, so I'll set the agenda up in Schoology. And also, Jason, our exceptional student specialist, when he's doing the minutes, he posts them back on Schoology to see. So we don't actually send them out again, but everybody knows where to get them. So the only people that have access to that are the ones that are on the actual team. No one else can see that.
Yeah, on my team, realize that these roles should change between the members on a monthly basis. And why we did that is, well, let's say that you are the team leader of yours, and for the meeting, you have another commitment, you can't be there, or the school counselor can't be there. That team is still gonna be functioning.
Absolutely.
And when we switch the roles around, everybody seems vested in it, because sometimes if you don't, some people would just sit back and say, they're leading the show, and I'm just sitting back
We've done
there.
that too, and
All
that's
right,
a great
so,
help.
but the thing is, I mean, when they did it, it didn't go over great, you know, the members. All right, but the thing is, when the members got used to it, they accepted the roles and they felt, you know, more comfortable with them when they were leading. You're still working as a team, but when that principal is not there, the social worker is not there, the council is not there because of other commitment or an emergency that comes about. Sometimes in some of the meetings, all of a sudden the bus driver is coming in, so they know that principal needs to get out there now.
Oh, absolutely.
And the team is definitely still working and they feel comfortable working, and then they will update that administrator or the council when they come back to the meeting,
Yeah.
what went on overall.
That's a good point, and there's oftentimes that she's not there, to be there, to know what's going on, but.
So
what
do
we
what
is-
works for your team and
Exactly
whatnot,
right.
but make sure that you have roles and responsibilities, whether you change them weekly, monthly, quarterly, or it stays the same for the full school year. But that's something that you should be thoughtful of how you set it up. But make sure that you think about the roles of your team and of the members of the team. There it is again, establish your meeting time, how often should you meet, weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, before school, after school, is there a planning period time? That's really gonna depend on the culture of your school, the dynamics of your school, who the team members are, what priority you're giving to it, and it may evolve over time, is what might happen. That, you know, you might start with a very small group and it works at this point in time to meet at this time, and you're saying, maybe that's not enough. We meet weekly because the need is there. We also meet weekly because we see this team, you know, oh, there's nothing to do. There's always something to do if you're in an elementary school and you're working on climate and culture, really. So there is always something that needs to be addressed, happening, that this team should be looking at. Oh, people. You just had to go there. So this clock is behind by what, a couple of minutes we said?
Yes.
So we think now might be a good time. I see people checking their phones, which means it's time for a natural break, and we thought we'd have it at about 4. So why don't you take a quick break, a quick 5-minute, go grab a snack, take care of what you need to take care of, and then come on back.
They are PBIS. You guys are PBIS?
Yes, we are PBIS.
Are you running these?
Why can't we just
in isolation of each other, or?
Well,
how-
we do have different meetings for them. So ESAP is not the PBIS meeting,
yeah.
but we do have members that are on both teams. That
was my
makes
next
sense. So when I really think about it, almost every PBIS team member is a part of the ESAP team, almost. But they meet at separate times.
Are you?
They don't meet at the same
With
time.
PBIS, are you running tier 2 and tier 3 as well, or, and there, is that all one team as well? Like, is all
Do you have a
PBIS
separate
one team,
tier
or do you have a
2
separate
teams?
tier 2, 3?
Different programs, and you're gonna talk about that.
We keep one spreadsheet, so when she was talking about that they all meet, my intervention specialist, my SFRS, that's when they look at all the kids. And it's a lot of the same data, is where
Well,
you're
that's
going with it,
where-
because your tier 2 might be your school-based, that individual, the small groups, right, because we all run small groups and whatnot. So we keep a big spreadsheet for the whole school, and that's her team then, that keeps track of what interventions are we putting in place for different kids. If that makes sense.
It does,
Because there is overlap.
and that's where,
Mhm.
and
We're just
when
trying to
Marvin,
figure out if we have to develop an entire new team. Do you know what I mean? Or if we can hold it together. Because I feel like, I mean, there's some differences with documentation, you know,
Yes.
definitely. But, you know, we meet weekly with to go over our student cases. You know, we run our check in, check out program, we have the first aid. We just had
and the reality is, and, so, and in fairness, we're a much easier environment than what you have too, you know, like a lot of these things that you have up there, like we have some where you might have a lot, you know, so.
Right.
Like,
volume
we're only,
is
yeah,
You
we're
may
only.
need to have like a lead person for each, like that roles and responsibility might be key for you guys. And someone
Well, and that's
lead.
like I lead all of the PBIS stuff. So who's the natural leader for SAP? It's usually the guidance counselor, you know?
But does it have
See, though, I would say you're the overall of all services, but like, I mean, like we run check in, check out. She doesn't do any check in, check out, but she monitors the process, you know, like, she's not, so even in this situation, I would probably, if she's running, still say, okay, you're not gonna be the case manager of anybody, you know, because
Right.
we're gonna make sure.
Right, that's what you guys need to, and you may just need to sit down and do like a flow chart, right, to
Oh, yeah,
figure out
absolutely.
where everybody kind of fits in, is what you may have to do. Yeah. How big is your school that you're
300 kids, and we're, like, now we're under that at this point, we're really down to like 330, like,
Okay.
we're dropping enrollment right now, which is good, so.
They make it.
Well, in comparison to the rest of the district, we have by far the highest class sizes. And again, they're not bad, like, but they're the highest in the district, so we're not.
Yeah, it may be just figuring out who's gonna take the lead, because it is a lot of the same data. And then what we just did, last week, I had team meetings for my whole staff, where by grade level we met. And we actually gave out discipline information, PBIS information, and then we actually put out all the tier 2 and tier 3 information to share with teachers, because sometimes, right, they don't know what happens behind the scenes. And we wanted them to know how many kids have been in day hospital, how many kids are part of a small group, how many kids have been suspended, how many office referrals we had. I mean, we literally broke it down for them.
One of the other,
Keep people in the loop.
one of the other things that has been a barrier for me mentally, as I'm trying to look at this process, is when we went through the SAP training last year, like, and the presentation of it was not brilliant. Like, I mean, it was pretty rough training. But well, it's great content, like, and I mean, it just.
But you're not too far, come visit us on Tuesday afternoon.
I would love to. It's.
No, seriously.
I'm serious.
Are
I would love to.
your SAP kiddos, are they the ones that are, like, their services are targeted more at therapy?
Not necessarily.
What are some of the other things your SAP kids are getting?
So they might, so my SFRS and school psychologists, they also run small groups. So we've also gotten very targeted of when we do small groups. So if we're seeing a pattern, for example, fourth grade, let's say second grade boys are really struggling, and we see it in the cafeteria or with their social skills, then we will run that. In the past, we used to say, in October, we're going to run a friendship group. So now we look at what the data says, and that's how we form. So we're trying to be very deliberate about it. And that's been a shift for us and whatnot, because we, sometimes you just do what you always do. And now we're trying to say, okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to base it on what is our current need. Exactly.
And that's what we're doing with PBIS. It's like we take that PBIS data and inform it accordingly. So
that's why now we're
again, what's
looking at it as a
PBIS and what's
whole.
SAP for us, and that's like, and even from a paperwork standpoint.
Some of it might cross.
Yeah.
That's the issue, because some of our kids are complicated, right?
Absolutely.
And some might have academic, some might have behavioral, some might have that whole mental health, so they'll be doing school-based, the IST, the RTII, the MTSS, they keep changing it.
I was just saying, to go back on that, one other challenge I was bringing up with the training is they were, like, he just repeated over and over and over, SAP is not making the referral, we're doing the screening. So like with they were saying with the agency just sees that kid 3 times or whatever, and then makes a recommendation for the parent, and that was, they tried to say, and that's what they tried to say the process was, and like.
That's
not reality.
No, it's not. Do what works for your school, build those partnerships, and we know that our kids are gonna need long-term. I mean, they are. It's that, you're not gonna go to counseling to 2 sessions, 6 weeks.
Then meet the red requirement, you have to identify and refer.
Well, I left the training with the impression
To
though,
meet the student need.
and again,
You're either being compliant.
Well, and I have
This
no
is a
problem
group.
with not following the rules, like she struggles not following the rules. But like,
She is a critical team member, let me tell you.
she's more than a critical team member.
He knows it.
You'll trust me, I'm not down that at all, like, that's.
We need you on the team.
Well, no, I'm happy to hear that that's not how you guys are doing, because like, I was thinking we weren't allowed to do that as the SAP to go straight to the, hey, we have this relationship with Presley Ridge, we're just, we think it needs, we move forward with that, like, so you're giving the team more decision power than what they essentially told us we were allowed to do. And I'm okay with that, like, especially, I didn't even step on that K3 level.
It's very different, and our world is different.
And our training had no K3 stuff in it, it was a lot.
But aren't you seeing our babies coming in with more and more, aren't they becoming more challenging than they were 5-10 years ago? It's just, gosh, you're talking maybe 5 and have these many issues, when did this happen? I mean, I'm sure you guys are seeing it.
Absolutely.
I mean, people think it's just the middle school and high school issue. No, it's
You don't want me to come out.
these little ones. I mean, I find my little 5-6-year-olds are the most challenging ones. The most challenging ones are those 5-6-year-olds.
Oh, yeah, put it on my calendar, so I'll be there if I can. By the time they're in 2nd, 3rd grade for most of the time, they get, it's, but again, that's, it's not necessarily getting it, it's providing support,
It's a lot of coordination, and there's a lot of overlap, is what I find. And you have to streamline it, because you have to say guidelines. Is what you have to do. But Excel is like, they're all wonderful at it, and that's how we like really. And they do, they list it all across on our Excel sheet, and then they just check off what each kid is receiving. And that way we can look at it.
That we didn't completely scare you, right? You didn't just go for snacks and never come back.
Really, yeah.
It depends on the risk factors as to whether you call it a SAP process or a KBIS process.
Yeah, there's a reality.
Yeah, I think we have.
No, I don't want to talk about
I
that.
said we didn't schedule too much, just they came back after we got snacks, so. So we'll get started, we'll get into some more stuff. I know you guys have so many questions and lots of things that you want to hear about, so we want to get into all that.
Paperwork and forms, unfortunately,
You know Martha's taking out.
If you don't document, it's like it never happened, right? And in today's day and age, you know, it's so sad to me to watch what's happening in Florida and everywhere else. And what are they doing? They're looking back at what did the schools do. And the only thing they're gonna look at is paperwork, folks. You all can be wonderful, you all may have great hearts, but they wanna see the paperwork. What was documented, what was done, who did it, when was it done? That's what they're gonna look at. So even though I know it's pain, that's the only way to really say it, and we have to, it's a compliance aspect to it, the reality of it is if we don't document, it's as if we did nothing. So we have to make sure that we document. It also helps if kids stay within the same system and they stay within the same school system, that we're sharing that information. Or if kids move in, move out, and they come back to you and you have that information of what it was that you did 2 years ago. So that documentation is gonna be critical. So there is lots of paperwork to be done. The case manager gets to do a lot of that. Referral forms, requests for assistance, anybody could put that in, is what they could do. However, you must have parent permission. There is a consent form that goes along with SAP. And we cannot just say this child is going to be part of the SAP team unless the parent consents. It is going to be critical. The parents have the option to decline. And if they say no, please make sure that they sign, because we want that signature that they have declined. Because if something, God forbid, happens, they're going to be like, I didn't realize that that's what they wanted to give me. I didn't realize that they offered that. They never offered me that. And if you unfortunately have the paper that says that they declined, that is your evidence that you have. You need to get parent permission yearly, so it doesn't carry over year to year. So make sure that you're going back, and what we do is, we do it over the summertime. And over the summertime, we're doing home visits, phone calls, having conversations with parents if they're still interested. It also gives us an opportunity to keep that connection with our kids is what we do. So over the summertime, making sure that you're starting those conversations again. And if you could get the form signed, that's fantastic, because then you're off and running when school starts. Middle school, this like blew my mind away. I'm not originally from Pennsylvania. At 14, the kids get to decide whether they want to be a part of it or not. Really? Kids with mental health issues get to make decisions? Are you kidding me? But that's our reality. For secondary, 14. For mental health services, for ESAP, release of information, it's just mind-blowing that these kids have rights at 14 when they may not be stable or be able to, right, their brains aren't even developed, right? If we could have that conversation. But their brains aren't even developed, but the reality of it is the parent might consent, but the child may say, I'm not participating, I decline. So if you look at the forms, it has signature for both. And make sure that you're getting the signature from the child also.
If that blows your mind, you know what the age of consent is for drug and alcohol?
Go for it.
Anybody besides you?
I do, I work for drugs.
Say it again?
Yes. Zero.
What is it?
They could decline drug and alcohol services,
Right.
8, 7, 6.
Right. So a 1-year-old could walk into a drug and alcohol treatment center and say, I need help, and would be allowed to.
Okay. You're a plant here, aren't you? Wow, okay. Well, we have a lot of work that we need to do, is what we have to do. So there's also behavior observation forms that can be done. All of that are necessary forms that are a part of that. We usually have the case manager make sure that they keep track of that. So Dugan is wonderful. She gives them she's organized, and she's like, here you go, you're the case manager, hands over the folder with everything.
Do you have a specific parent input form?
We personally don't have that, but we have had, I've had parents review the teacher form with me before, and also just give some observations, because oftentimes we'll meet with the parent prior to even a referral. we might just have the parent sign the paper there without even going through the referral process. And then I'm just jotting notes down what's going on and taking that information to the team. So we've done that.
But that can be very helpful, and especially if you do have an established SAP team at your middle school or high school, and they've been doing it for a while. I know some of the teams that I have worked with have kind of taken that secondary paperwork and looked at it, and obviously not everything applies to the elementary level, but kind of made it consistent throughout the district and kind of looked to what's on the parent checklist at secondary and what could we, take out or change and make it work. For the elementary. So some schools do, some don't, but it is kind of helpful, and I know a lot of schools I work with, they kind of have that permission form and that checklist, and either it's sent home to the parent or given to them when they come in, can be really helpful.
Yeah, it's something someone asked for. So.
And make sure you're getting the right person signed, because sometimes guardianship could be an issue, so you want to make sure that legal guardianship, the parent, sometimes they say, it just gets very complicated, I'm finding, to have the right signature.
And it has to be a pen.
Yes, not in pencil.
Or crayon.
That's right.
The observation forms, are you doing them online or are you still doing the paper way?
Both
Can
ways.
you go ahead and
We do
put that
both
in?
ways. So some of the team members are real tech savvy and they want to do it online. Some people still hold on to paper. So right now at Lafayette, we do it both ways just because if people are doing it, I'm just happy that they're doing it and I'm not telling them which way to do it because they're getting it done.
Yeah, a lot of schools are using the Google Docs.
Yes.
And they're coming back and make pie charts and bar graphs and everything.
Right.
And it's saving the team so much time.
We're gonna think into
compiling
that,
the paperwork
next year with
together.
Google
We're
Docs.
using all Google, we do all Google.
Yeah, we're starting to do that.
In 16 elementary schools, it's all Google.
It is, I
Yeah,
think it's
we're
gonna be a lot
starting, our
easier to do
district is starting now, so we're in transition. But we're still doing hard copies.
Is electronic permission allowed?
Very good question. I'm gonna turn to you for that one. That's a whole nother conversation, and we internally in our district are still having all kinds of conversations about electronic signatures, even for attendance purposes. Can I receive an email?
Right. It depends on your district and what your policy is, but you could, I mean, if you have something from the parent, that is electronic, that they're saying, yes, I am saying that I'm consenting to, the ESAP process, you can print that.
I'm
and
even
have her-
thinking like, can you send it, have the phone conversation, send like a Google form in an email, they click yes or no comments, electronic.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would definitely.
Is that allowed?
I mean, yeah, because we're a cyber
Yeah.
school, so like,
Oh.
we had that issue and I went to my regional liaison where my office is, Renee Urick, and she said, she talked to all the regional liaisons and they agreed that that was okay. It should be something that's password protected. It should be something like using maybe the school email addresses and not sending to the parents' personal emails or whatever. So what we do is we send out our referral paperwork two ways because we don't see the parent, they're not coming in.
Right.
So we mail home a set of paperwork and we do that certified mail. A lot of times that never comes back and it's expensive, but it doesn't come back because they don't answer the door or they see it's certified mail and they don't want any part of it. So we email it the same day that goes out to the parent email accounts, and then when we call them, we tell them, you may not get your certified mail, if not, it's in your email, and then they print it and they scan it back to us, and then we upload that to the online system that we use.
So every district has a district solicitor, every district has a policy.
Right.
So I would definitely find out with your
Absolutely.
district personnel what your
Absolutely.
district's stance is on electronic signatures and how to go about getting that.
Right.
True, and our solicitor didn't like that idea for a long time.
Yes.
Right.
The caveat, talk to your solicitor.
Correct.
And find out, whatever to that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And to go along with that too, like if we're getting a physical signature, and we talked about guardianship and who had it, if I have a team that's coming to me and they're like, well, we want to do a parent meeting, we want to get permission for ESAP, and they're like, but, sometimes with moms, I'm like, get both signatures. Then one parent can't say, well, you went ahead and, put them in the ESAP process and you only got permission for mom, and I didn't want them in. If both parents sign it, then there's you both signed it. So, I always say in those types of situations, just go and get
whatever, or if grandma's involved, get everybody's signature that you think you're gonna need so that no one can come back to you and say, again, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Or they can say, no, I never signed that. If it's signed by everybody, then we're good to go.
So those are all the forms, we're not gonna burn through those.
Right, and here's just a sample of like a parent guardian consent to the ESAT process, and right there you see, I give permission or I don't. They check off yes or no, and it's signed. That way we know that it was offered to them.
And you could offer it again 2 months later, 2 weeks later, 2 days later. I mean, I've had situations where the parent will say no to me, and 2 days later, they're sitting with me again, and I'm like, yeah, no, the offer still stands, we could still do. And they're like, yeah, I think I'll take you up on it, Mrs. Warvis. So you can continue to offer it is what you can do, but they definitely decline. And I have had parents that decline and they don't want a part of it at all, and that's okay too.
But don't you continue though to monitor the student though?
We do, but it cannot be through the SAP team.
Through, it's like your job study or whatever.
Yeah, so then you have to, you gotta look for other avenues.
So that's the difference for you. Okay, so these are some of the observation forms that we use. We obviously give one to the disciplinarian. That's our vice principal in our building. She actually reports how many office referrals and conduct referrals, we call them, at Lafayette. Any phone calls have made to parents, she would document on that. We also have the school counselor form. I'm giving the attendance, putting the attendance on it for this year, the prior years, all of the data that we have, PSSA data, any other forms of testing that we've done in our building, I'm printing them up. And this is all given to us by that case manager after they're assigned. The school nurse gets a form as well. It's important that we always check vision first. Do they have a vision check? That's something we don't even think about sometimes, but it's also very important. What kind of medical conditions does that student have? We're finding out that we have students that have kidney problems that we didn't know about, or have...
Or the parents tell you they have kidney problems, but they've never turned in a doctor's order, so now we're tracking down. Is it
lactose
true?
intolerance, a big deal, you know, so
Yes.
we might...
So this is just a nice way to kind of make sure that when you're getting to this level, that you're double, triple checking everything, because people tell you all kinds of things, but have they turned in the right documentation? And over time, people are just making assumptions. It's like, yep, just keep letting her go to the bathroom, keep letting this child drink water. And I'm like, do we even have anything that really says this child has kidney problems? Well, no. Well, perhaps we should tell the parents to bring that in if we're going to continue to do all these accommodations, right? So you want to make sure this just kind of helps to tighten things up is what it does.
Obviously, the teacher gets her a form. We take the teacher form and also give it to every special teacher that we have. So in the building, we have 3. Who else do you think in the building could actually, would be important to get their feedback?
Special education teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say the parent.
Yeah, we have used, we have our social worker, it could be our speech teacher, or sometimes our school psychologist sees a student for group. So we will give her one as well. So whoever is touching that student within the day, we make sure that they have one too. Yes, ma'am?
bus drivers.
We have not. I have not personally since I've been there.
No.
I don't know if you have.
Because they're outsourced, they're not district employees.
Yeah.
So if they're district employees, you may want to consider that, but for us, we outsource that, so we do not use them. The one thing that I also wanted to go back, roles and responsibilities, you want to have someone who's your historian on the team, right? Who's had, unfortunately, I'm the historian on my team, and I've been around for a while, so I'm like, oh yeah, I remember Dad from middle school, when I was the AP there, and now I have the
I know the
kids.
brothers, uncles, sister was in
Yeah.
emotional support, you know, so you
So
see the
sometimes
patterns.
it's just important to have the history, so someone to be the historian to say, you know what, this family has made a lot of progress over time. And you may think that they're struggling right now, but you should see how resilient they really are. Because I remember when they started, and you need someone that's gonna bring that up and give credit to how hard this family has worked to get to where they're at now. And they may not be where they need to be, but someone on the team to say, look, but they've come this far. And that's really critical too. So someone that has that role of kind of a historian. And that'll happen naturally and organically is what'll happen. But that is a really important role not that we want to admire the past all the time, and, you know, we do want to move forward, but there's some important information that can be gained from that.
Right, and going along with that too, with the teacher form, I've had a lot of schools that they actually go to, so if it's a third grader, they'll send it to their second grade teacher, just see, have you noticed when you've seen this kid, are there changes from last year that we're missing, you know, that we haven't seen, so it's another great person to do as well.
And as for the bus drivers, I know like one of our schools, the principal is the transportation director. So if she's hearing from the bus drivers, like this kid's name is continuously coming up, she's able to bring it forward because she's on the SAP team. So also look at like who's holding double jobs in your school district. So it's helped tremendously.
So we've talked about the SAP program brochure. We have given out thank yous to the referral sources. Sometimes that could even be through an email or just talking to someone in the hallway.
The brochure that you guys put out. And there's just a sample thank you. So I have some schools who, they kind of have the referral form, and this is kind of like the cutoff or the tariff at the bottom. So that way when it's discussed at the SAP team meeting, they fill it right out and put it there. That way, that eliminates your teachers going, I made that referral, did they actually do anything with that kid? Whatever happened, this secret SAP meeting happens and it's confidential, we can't know what's going on. This is just an easy way to kind of say like, yes, we got your referral, thank you so much for making that referral to the team. Just kind of a way to let them know like, yeah, we can't tell you all the details of the SAP process, but know that we hear you and we're trying to work on this. And that comes along, like you said, to educating your faculty about that, knowing that it is a process, it's a SAP process, it's not gonna change next week for this kid, we're gonna have to work on this.
There was a school in my region that really does a nice job with this. They send out the thank you, they put a little Hershey Kiss with it. And then at the end of the year, when teachers are going crazy trying to get the last minute paperwork in, they hold an open house down in where the SAP team is. Put cookies, brownies, drinks, soft drinks. Soft drinks, but then, and then they have a little sheet about how many referrals the staff made that year and what happened with the referrals. So even though they can't know about an individual child, they can know collectively. And they have a very good relationship in their building with the rest of the staff because they try to be as transparent as they can be.
Yeah, good. Right, because you can discuss your patterns and trends in your building is what you can discuss. But that also go with, and it'll be in here somewhere, taking care of your team and taking care of your staff. Because your team is going to be doing some heavy duty lifting, and it's important for you to take care of that team. And it's even important to allow your team members, and this one always pains me, but to let people not be a part of a team. If they need to take a year off, it might be too much for them, and they need a year off just to take care of themselves. And you gotta allow them to take that year off or 2 years off from being part of the team and whatnot, because you are dealing with heavy duty issues is what you're doing. And we always talk about the protective factors for the kids, but we also have a responsibility to take care of our staff. And we don't know what trauma our staff members have and what the adults are going through. And if this is just taking a toll on them being on the ESAP team and they need to take 2 steps back, then we need to be responsible and take care of them too and allow them to step back and say, you know what, I'm not going to be a part of the team this year. And that's important because you want team members that are able to do that heavy lifting. And there are times when I have had to tell my staff, oh, you're getting ready to cross the line. Nope, don't use that credit card to go pay for 6 weeks for a hotel for the family because they're homeless. Because I have had teachers that they feel horrible and they're part of my SAP team and they just are willing because they're so giving, right? That's what we do. And I have had to pull them aside and say, you're getting ready to cross that line and you really don't want to do that. Or stop giving that mom coats. She's selling them. The little girl isn't coming in with the coats. Stop, just stop. Stop buying more and more coats. You're giving her a coat every week and she's not coming with a coat to school because mom keeps selling the coats. And sometimes we have to make sure that as part of taking care of that staff member, that we are telling them, time out, you're getting ready to cross a line that you shouldn't cross, and you're doing it with good intentions. Really good intentions, but we might have some unintended consequences here. but that self-care for yourself and your team is also very important.
Okay, so in our building, well, in all of our buildings, we have different phases that we go through. We probably talked about each of these already. We'll just go a quick review. So a referral can be made by anyone. That sometimes, as I said earlier, could be a meeting with a parent. First thing in the morning, a parent comes in and complains, the child's having difficulty, the child's being bullied, they start getting into their life and things that are causing some of the child problems, getting to school or so forth. We'll go ahead and have the parent sign that paperwork at that point. Then we'll go ahead and bring it to the team to see whether or not that child is appropriate to be there or not. Now, of course, this is all voluntary. So, as Wanda said, sometimes they just say no, and that's okay. As a team, we review the appropriateness, if I didn't say that already. The team starts to plan. So the case manager distributes those checklists, those paperwork, observation forms that we talked about a little bit earlier to the people, the teachers, the nurse, the counselor, disciplinarian. And we, as a team, then decide, we look at, or actually the case manager looks at all of the paperwork and decides what's going on, are there any trends, are they having some difficulties that we didn't know about, and then bring that information to the team. Go ahead. Well, actually, let's go ahead and do this one. What protective factors can you utilize in or outside of your building? Do you guys want to share out, or would you prefer to come up and?
Yeah,
we were,
what we were gonna do is, we were gonna put a chart right next to there. But let's take attendance, because that's big on everyone's, and it was on everybody's chart, just because there's new law on attendance, right? And we know we have to do more on attendance. So what protective factors do you guys put into place for attendance? Truancy, people not coming to school like they should. I had a kid who was absent 66 times already this year here.
Oh my God.
My plan with them is, I'm okay if you come to school tardy, please get here. Mom, I don't care if you get here at 10:30, I don't care if you get here at 2 o'clock, just get to school, please. And whatnot, and now they're getting to school tardy every day, and whatnot, and then I'll take on the tardy. But I first had to take on they weren't coming at all, so I had to take that one on. So what are you all doing for attendance? Because I know that's a big one across the state just because it's you.
Well, we have, so the beginning of the school year, they grew our attendance department from like 1 or 2 people to 10. And now, every time a student is at that 5th absence, they refer it to SAP.
Okay, so they do a referral to SAP. SAP team, here we are, what are we doing?
In Bethlehem, we have, it's called an SAIP.
Another acronym.
And it's kind of like it's kind of, they come up with a plan with the parent or without the parent on what we're gonna do about this. And I forget what but they are also.
To prevent them from citations, correct?
Yes.
It's,
Yes.
It's not like part of the law.
yes. And it used to be really long.
Yeah.
And they made it shorter, so. It used to be like 10 pages long, that the school counselors had to complete, but now
Yes.
they trimmed it
Just
down.
like I bought alarm clocks. I talk to parents about keep the book bag by the door, keep the uniforms at the end of the bed. I mean, I sit there, and it may seem real obvious, but give the parents the strategies to use.
Right, well, first is communication. just
Absolutely.
Conversation with the parent.
Yeah.
You have to find out why they're absent. You know, some of them, they're not talking to the school. They're not telling the school why they're absent, whether that's trust issue or whatever that may be, but, yeah, reaching out, you know.
I love it when the
It's all
simple
about
answer is, I
that
just
relationship.
forget to bring it,
Yeah.
send in the notes.
And now they're reaching out from these absences or tardies and finding out, you know, these families' hardship that they didn't know before. So the first is having a conversation why. They could have a sick parent at home that they're taking care of. It could be bullying, it could be extreme anxiety, you don't know. So you don't want to solve the wrong problem. So the conversation.
Roll out the SAP issues before you discipline.
Well, if they have, in Bethlehem, if they have a certain amount of unexcused absences, they have to do both. You know, it's, you know, they have to come up with something to address like some sort of a plan for the absenteeism, but also the SAP.
So marketing, we talked about marketing and advertising. So marketing and advertising, that if you come every day to school, you have what percentage, my SFRS did a fantastic job. She has flyers everywhere and has been sending it out. 80% chance of going to college if you show up now. So, you know, we could do the punitive, if you don't show up, we're gonna issue a citation, you're X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Or you could start to give all the reasons why coming to school is important and what the statistics say happens when the kids come to school. So we've really taken that positive aspect is what we're trying to take, because we're finding that we get there, but it's better to get that.
Isn't there a new thing in Pennsylvania, Challenge 5?
So really thinking creatively about the protective factors that you're putting into place. For any of these, we can look at any of them and really start to look at, you know, homelessness and you know, if kids don't have a place to do homework, I've had teachers, they'll send a little crate with the kids, so even if they're at the shelter, they have a crate and they could put their little things there, and that's where they could make sure that they have all their school stuff when they're at the shelter and whatnot. But so that they own a little something is what you want to do. So how do you put some of those positive things on there is what you kind of want to look at, really thinking outside the box for protective factors. And what you can control, right? Because there's a lot we can't control, a whole lot we can't control. And I saw like personal hygiene is like a huge one that's very difficult to control because, you know, I just want to take them home, shower you up, do your hair, put on a clean uniform and we'll be okay. But you can't do that and whatnot. So that's always a big one as to what can we do with personal hygiene and what kind of protective factors. And it's difficult conversations and it's sending home clothing or vouchers but it really does come down to communication and relationships and whatnot, because once the families start to trust you or to trust a team member, someone that they can confidentially go to and say, hey, I need help with X, Y, or Z, then you're really able to get in and make a difference. But it really is about communication and relationships is what I typically find, and then you can step in.
And I also encourage staff teams when you're getting started, or maybe something that you do at the beginning of each school year when you're kind of getting ready to, you know, start up for the year. Look at what do we have in place in our school, and sometimes it's just making that physical list to remember, oh yeah, we have a homework club. So that when we have that student, we're like, what do we have here that we can offer? Because I can't control some of the things outside of here, or maybe parents aren't willing to kind of move forward with ESAP and get linked to, you know, outside agencies, but what can we do here? So do we have after-school activities? Even if they're not run by, you know, our school, maybe we have agencies that come in and do them. What are they? Who's the person to contact? And if we put it all together in one spot, it's real easy for us to pull that out at a SAT meeting and say, okay, let's brainstorm and see what we can connect the student with. You know, if they're really into art, maybe we have some type of art club where they could do something with the art teacher as like an incentive for them. You know, so looking at those ways of being creative too.
So everything that she just talked about, the interventions, those interventions are shared with the student and the family. So when you were talking about the communication piece, it's really important to follow up. That has always been a barrier for some of the schools because the parents have no idea what's going on after you sat and met. So that's a key point.
And if you have lots of different languages or dialects and they're trying to figure out how do we communicate, we use Language Line a lot.
Does anyone else ever use that?
Yes. It's an amazing service. Hook up to it, they're usually really good. But I really like when it's a person coming, more so than the phone, because the phone is not very personal. But I do use the phone a lot, because I'll have situations where I just have to use it. But if you can get someone, an interpreter, to come out for meetings, that's also very powerful. Because there's something to be said for body language, and all of that gets lost in the on the phone conversation. And a lot of times interpreters, when they don't understand perhaps the school system, they just know the language. So if within your district you develop some type of partnership with interpreters and translators, you can have conversations of what is ESAP, what is the purpose, what is the process, so that then when they go to explain it to parents, they understand it. So for example, I speak Spanish. I can very confidently speak to you in Spanish about anything in education, but I would not be able to go to Milton Hershey Hospital and confidently interpret some medical procedure because I'm not familiar with the equipment, I'm not familiar with the process, and I'm going to muddle through it because I don't understand the process of it. But we assume that just because the person speaks the language, that they are able to interpret. And interpretation is oral, translation is text to text, so the written format, there is a difference. So just build relationships if you're gonna have people that are going to be doing that interpretation, and take the time to talk to them about the confidentiality aspect of it and the process ahead of time.
I'm just curious, what are some of your community-based organizations that you use, either through ESAP or even if they're not signed the permission for ESAP, what do you use to help see students?
We have Pyramid Healthcare, and you can step in if I forget one. Pyramid Healthcare, we have Center for Humanistic Change. They offer, Center for Humanistic Change at the elementary level has a mentoring program called Crossroads. Bellevue House.
There's the Reading,
But Bellevue,
Shore?
I mean, I guess I'm specifically thinking
Yeah.
school-based
Yeah.
counseling. Bellevue, we don't.
You don't
offer.
see your Lehigh, we're Lehigh and Northampton,
Right.
so we get Center for Humanistic Change and Valley Youth House and all those other ones that you were saying.
Crime Victims Council recently joined us this year. They're offering some counseling. Now that's very specific. They have to have been a victim of crime. It's very specialized counseling, but it's amazing if we do have a student that needs that service.
Does United Way do counseling? Does United Way fund anything for that? Not sure if we do that. The Mars,
They fund the Crossroads program.
Mars Mid-Atlantic Rehabilitation Services, that has their own counseling, they'll do groups inside schools that we fund.
Lehigh Valley Health Network recently joined us last year and just added an additional counselor this year for our elementary schools. So actually, we're really hoping that that grows.
So it sounds like you have a lot of good
Yeah,
connections.
that's an organization that's really growing a lot. They're wanting to do more.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because they're one of the few that's the only, besides crime victims, that's doing individual school-based counseling in our elementary schools.
Will
Now,
any of those
secondary
people become
levels-
to, be a part of your ESAP team?
Are they part of our ESAP team?
Or have you considered getting them to come into your ESAP team to work with you?
They do, yes.
Okay. So they come to your meetings?
They come to,
Like a
we
representative.
just had a school-based, district-wide meeting.
Okay.
So yes,
Oh,
all
that's
the
good.
providers came to that.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
Anybody else want to share what they might have?
I was gonna say, they typically don't come in to the schools, but Highmark Caring Places is wonderful. And so I'm not sure of every location, but there's 2 in the Pittsburgh area and 1 near Harrisburg. But they're there to provide the counseling support, all the techniques that are needed for the kids that have lost a loved one.
Yeah, hospice does a nice job too.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah,
local
so-
hospice for kids that are grieving.
Look to what's in your community, and like you said, some of those places, and I know even some different like grief camps, other camps that are, they might serve a big portion of Pennsylvania. So it might be something that there's a way, to get transportation for that family to be able to go to that summer camp program. So even if it's not right in your county, there still might be those other resources. So just being aware of what else is going on, if there is like a week-long camp that they might be able to
Or
go
even
to.
connecting with, I know this is gonna sound terrible, but even your local prison, because they have supports for families too. And we have a lot of kids that just have parents that are incarcerated. And they may have some areas that they may be able to lead you to organizations that they work with, that would be willing to work with the kids.
One of the things we did when we first started the process is there's so much out there that we created a Google Doc that has everything lined out, updated it. I think we had an intern go through and just get everything, all the phone numbers and everything that we could use, because there is so much, and it's a good idea to just kind of put it all together. One counselor that really, or all the counselors send everything and put it on a Google Doc, update it, so that one counselor doesn't have 5 additional resources that another counselor has, but it's all this one Google Doc that everyone can access all of the resources, so.
And those are when we talk about people on your team, if there's somebody who really wants to be a part of the team, but maybe they can't always commit, maybe to, if it's the after-school meeting, maybe they're not able to stay after school because they have other things with their family that they need to be doing, maybe they can be the person on your team who's trained, but that's their sole purpose. They keep those lists updated and do those types of things. So somebody who maybe is really good at that, maybe can't always be there for team meetings, but that's a way that they could still be a part of the team
And
and
that
update
person
those.
would be a good one to, if you are testing you're seeing that there's a lot of, trauma or something, that you can provide the faculty with some strategies in the classroom and some updated, just quick information, not like long journal articles that I would get into reading, but you want to kind of keep it like short and sweet for teachers, but just kind of the person keeping on track of that, but also keeping just like little appetizer bites of information for the teachers.
Kind of like a SAP, did you know, kind of putting information
Yeah,
out there to the.
like a flash.
So our last phase is support and follow-up. Our case managers meet with the student to always check on them. They're mentoring them, they're motivating them. We as a team talks about their student every week, just for any kind of update. If there's nothing going on with that student, that's okay, they can pass it. Same as last week, no new information actually. This data is reported to the state with no identifying information. I keep an Excel spreadsheet when the referral came in, when the meetings happen. I actually talked to our teachers too about keeping case notes on the student, as even though we're doing it, putting information in our notes after our or during our meetings, they're seeing stuff throughout the week that they might not write down. They might have talked to the parent and not have the parent say, no, I've never talked to that case manager before, which that has happened. Our case manager has made several calls to the family to follow up, and the mother's like, oh, I've never heard from them. So that can be an issue. And just make sure that you get written permission every year. That's important too. Go ahead, you can move to the next one, because that's just all the challenges and barriers. So what barriers does your team face getting this started? What do you have? Is it, I will just tell you a little information. I came from a school in York, a charter school, that they sent me to the SAP training, came back, and they didn't implement it. They wouldn't find time. I don't know why they even sent me. I felt like I've wasted three days of my life just because I missed so much stuff when you're gone. But then I came over to Lafayette, and because our principal was already, that was something you had to do. It was not an exception. No, that's good. I mean, and I was like, oh my gosh, really? You do this here? So what kind of barriers do you have in your building just to get started?
So she just gave you the first one, no administrator buy-in.
Yeah,
That's a reality.
That's
a huge one.
That is huge.
Right.
Your central administration and your school administration are on board with
It's
this.
a non-negotiable in our
Huge.
building.
And I want to say, that's why they stay for that half hour of unpaid work, because the administrator is 100% on board with this. If you were kind of like, they would be,
Right.
So,
Good point.
And I'm not asking them to do something that I'm not willing to do myself.
that's right.
As
That's
the
right.
administrator, I'm willing to stay for that half hour, so if I'm willing to do it, I'm not asking you to do it, and I'm just saying, yeah, and I'm out, see ya.
I think when you have limited staff and there's so many other meetings and committees, that they're overburdened and they don't feel like they can give one more, meeting.
Yeah, we're always looking for the cheerleaders in our building, but unfortunately, the cheerleaders are doing everything. They're in the social committee, they're doing the after-school clubs, so it's really, you're right, that is a difficult thing to try to get another person involved.
I'm gonna share one here, and maybe there's the right ears in the room for this, but I think the actual SAP training is a barrier, because it's not, I don't feel that it's ESAP driven. Like, it is very, like, I felt like it was that secondary focus all the way through, and we had the discussion during the break that, like, as I'm hearing some of what they are doing and so on, we can make this fit without an issue, but it's a very different perspective than what we had at our training. So like, I'm gonna say the training actually freaked me out a little bit of, we want to do it right, but there were some guidelines that work there's just some very big differences between secondary and elementary, obviously, you know? And so, I think
But when were you trained?
last year,
Because I forget when I was trained, maybe 2 years ago, and it was very middle, high schooly, but I understand like some people that are newly SAP trained, they're discussing more of the elementary aspects, I think.
I missed that in ours. I don't mean that to be.
Depends where you go and who your trainer is too.
Yeah.
It
depends on your trainer.
Right.
Standard training
Right.
really does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Giving it a good time.
Yeah, I mean, Tricia, I'm gonna put it on Tricia, I see Tricia looking down too. As important, I think it does depend on your trainer. I know that when I train, I'm one of the cats, I always like to know exactly who's in my training group, and I will tailor my presentation for the people in that room. Because there are different nuances for elementary and secondary, but if I know there's a mix, we are covering the whole gamut, because I think there's value in secondary folks understanding how ESET works.
Absolutely.
And vice versa.
I think we all need to understand the continuum, you know, like.
So I see that, but I will sometimes, even though it is a K through 12, I have run trainings that are specifically for elementary schools. If I know like there's a bunch of new teams in my area that have not been exposed to it at all, I want to do a more customized training for those folks so we can delve into it a little bit deeper. But if I know it's a combination, existing teams, you're going to go back to an already established, well-established ESAT team, then let's give you a training that is more K through 12 focused. So
Right, and
it does depend on your training.
And elementary schools are now dealing with just heavy-duty issues, right? We're not cute little buildings anymore. We have a lot of the same issues that middle and high school has, unfortunately, and our kids are coming to us younger and younger with more challenges and more needs, and schools are a reflection of society, and we see a lot of mental health issues in society that are not being treated, and our kids are coming in with lots of needs. So I think there is definitely a need for elementary SAT, where I would be standing up.
Yeah, also too, I mean, I agree with you, but I'm also a cat. And when we look at, we always have to talk, you know, to how many high school people do we have here? How many elementary, also too, how many liaisons do we have? Because we have to see with the liaisons, they give them a piece of the information, how they're going to be an important part and factor into this whole process with their schools. And also the teachers saying, you know, how many are just starting out? All right, and also too, when you go back to a high school, all your high school, I don't want to use this word derogatory, but is it an old team, as in people go by the old method? Because when you go back there, we're giving you the new methods and everything like that. Are you going to have some resistance? How are you going to deal with some resistance that you might have with some people that are, this is the way we've done it for 15 years and we're not changing that way. I don't care who you are. All right?
Growth mindset. We want teams with a growth mindset,
Exactly.
always
So
willing to learn.
it's very important, you know, also to what I say, sirs, whoever did your training, I obviously, when I do my training, if you have any questions, please call me back. So whoever your trainers were, you might want to give them a call back to ask them some questions that you might have in developing that
I think
team.
the problem, I was just saying to him, was that our trainers are also our contracted liaisons. So like they were pushing about the referring because they end up referring to themselves. Do you know what I mean? So like there wasn't that open, like, you know, that there's flexibility. It was like, no, you have to do this and you have to have a liaison because we come in and, do you know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you're saying, you know, like that. I'm an easy with hearing what you're saying, you know?
Just a couple of observations. One is, you know, I don't know how familiar you are with the history of SAP, but prior to 2012, there were two separate trainings. We had elementary SAP, we had secondary SAP trainings. But the feedback we were getting is, we can't get out of the building that much. We can't allow people, especially people that cross between the two, we can't allow them out that long to go to two different trainings, meet all the competencies for both. So in 2012, that's why they were combined. So we realized that neither one, you know, it's like they said, they have to, Tina and Jude have both said, you look for who your audience is going to be, who your participants are going to be, and know what they, you know, and include that in the resources. But as well, your county coordination, it's extremely important to send somebody to those SAP county coordination team meetings. They're not a waste of time if they're done right, because what you do is you come to those meetings and say, this is a problem we're having, how's everybody else handling this? Or, you know, we found when we do this at the elementary level, this happens. Does anybody else run into that? And County Coordination Committee, a huge resource for you ongoing as you're trying to, you know, navigate all of this. So it's not that we're not sensitive to the differences, but they were combined because of what we were hearing.
And that takes us right to the next slide, which is really just working together and how do we educate each other, right? 'Cause that's that communication piece, and we have to continue to talk to each other, just the community, the students, the parents, the faculty, and even just the conversation, and just really appreciate the fact that everybody's being so open today during this presentation that we're doing, because it's important and we do learn from one another and we do get ideas from one another, and I think that's a huge part, that community conversation that's happening. And we need to make sure we go back and we have those conversations with the right people.
Right. And just like those puzzle pieces that are out there, all these components make up our SAP team. So when we're working with parents, sometimes even when you're giving that initial permission form, stating that you're a part of our team and we want you to be part of this process with us. Not, we're telling you this is what's wrong with your kid and this is what you need to do. We want to hear what are your concerns, and kind of putting all those pieces together, and how do we all come together, whether it's our community, liaisons that we have, that whether they're on our team or not, but how do they work with our building and getting the parents, but then our faculty as well, and how do we make sure that everybody knows what's going on and what we can share with them. So I started with the parents here. How do we make sure that our parents know? We talked about this a little bit earlier with the brochures. I said about, a school that I've worked with before, they go in report cards. Maybe twice a year at the beginning of the year and then maybe halfway through the year, just kind of as a reminder to parents that it's there. Parent-teacher conferences. I think somebody in here said about that they put brochures out at that. I know schools who have like a little table, their SAP team kind of sets up a table with information, as parents right where they're coming in. So if they see it, maybe they take that information. If they do anything with it, who knows, but they might come back to them and be like, oh yeah, I picked up that ESAP brochure and I could really use that right now. So finding ways that we can do that. And also the school website. Again, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but making sure that we're kind of aligning with what our secondary school is doing, our middle school, our high school, and on our district website, is there a certain page that's for SAP teams and putting all that information? Who are the SAP team members? What, kind of explaining it to the parents. So if they're, navigating the school website and looking for information, they'll come across that ESAP information as well. So here I have just a sample of, this is actually from the Hamburg area school district in Berks County that I work with. This is kind of what they did, and it looks similar on their website for their elementary schools, middle school, and high school. So this is just kind of explaining to the community, if they're on there, the parents, whoever's looking at that school website, that we have a team, this is what the team does, and kind of talking about all those different things, what some of the warning signs are. In some schools that I work with, from this page on their website, that they might have links to, what are concerning behaviors. They might have links to the parent consent form and this parent checklist. All those types of things that the parents can just click right there. Even having the referral form right there, so that if a parent's on there, they can click that referral form. And whether your school is tech savvy and has it, that they can do an online referral, or if it's just that they can at least access that referral form and print it and fill it out and take it to the school, or email it back as an attachment or something like that.
So I want to say that in any of the Bethlehem Area School District, you go to any of those elementary schools, and there's a link to SAP on their websites. You can go to anyone, and there is an electronic referral that the parent can make, along with the one that they can do, a paper and pencil one in school, but all of the elementary schools have that link on their website, each of the 16 schools. So,
that's awesome.
So, it's the same thing, that information. And that's a great point for the community members also.
Exactly.
The neighbor who sees something funky.
That they might not have a student in that school.
That's right.
Or think about, for those of you who are parents, most times you know the other kids in the school, or they're on the same team as your child. So if I have that information, I can go make a referral about one of my kids' friends that I'm concerned about.
Isn't that one of the big reasons for this whole
Right,
program?
and I think someone said about school bus drivers that they might not always be included, but I know a lot of schools who, even if they're contracted with the school, that they'll still do like a presentation at the beginning of the school year, just kind of giving them like, hey, we have this SAP team, this is what it's for, and here's where our referrals are located. Or that, you know, I think somebody said that the principal was also the transportation coordinator. Or this is the point person in the school who you could make a referral to if you do see something at the bus.
Right.
Or not even if it happens on the bus, but they see those bus stops and what's going on there, and you know, this kid gets off every day and someone's not there waiting for them, or whatever it is, and can kind of report that information back, and here's a way that you can make that referral to them. So here's some ways about faculty and students. And even at an elementary level, making sure our kids understand what the ESAP process is and why it's important. So it's not a scary thing, it's not discipline. I know as a SAP liaison and going to schools at the middle school level, a lot of time when I'm doing assessments, the kids are like, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble, what's going on, why'd you call me down here? So that kids know what ESAP or what SAP is in the district. So it's not like I'm in trouble, I'm getting called down to the office. Updates for your faculty doing in-services. If you do work with community agencies, having them come in and talk about what they might be doing in the school as far as school-based counseling or whatever, just so that the faculty is aware of what's going on in our school. So again, like I said, a lot of times our faculty gets into this like, SAP's this secret meeting, we can't know what's going on, it's all confidential, but let's share what we can. And I like to highlight with schools too. I think you had said that you had some schools that at the end of the year, they kind of say, this is what we've done. Or coming back at the beginning of the school year, reminding them about SAP and hey, we had this many referrals last year, this is how many kids got connected to you know, our outpatient counseling or our school-based counseling, and just kind of giving them those broad statistics that we can so that they can see that those referrals that they're making are making a difference. With students, doing classroom presentations, something to let them know what's going on. I have a lot of schools, both at elementary and secondary level, that do door signs for anybody who's on the SAP team. So whether your SAP team has a logo or something like that, that they kind of create those so they see them throughout the building and know what that program is and know that that's a person that I can go talk to. I can make a referral about my friend if I'm concerned about them. And also when you have those parents coming in and out, and we know at the elementary level, they're coming in for lots of different things, and they're involved in the school. It's another way that we're educating the parents that if they aren't aware, they might be like, well, what is ESAP? And why do I see these on different teachers' doors? And then they want to know more and understand what the program is. So getting staff on board. We talked about this earlier, it's a little bit of a challenge sometimes, in trying to let them know what to do, but making sure that when we have our ESAP team, if we're just getting started or if we've been up and running forever, every year making sure our staff know, here's the referral process. Do we have electronic forms, do we have paper copies, whatever it is, here's where they are, this is where you can find them. And even though your teachers may have been there for years and years and years, it's great to just remind them at the beginning of every school year, this is what we're doing, remember these are the forms that we need, when you have a concern about a kid, fill out the form. Letting them know about the paperwork part of it. When we get this referral, we're gonna send out checklists, we're gonna send you a teacher checklist, and this is why we need that information. It's so important for you to get it back to us. Because as we know, teachers are just like, well, yeah, I have a stack of all sorts of papers to fill out. You're just sending me one more form that I need to fill out. But why is that important? Why does that help our team? And then also kind of just explaining the confidentiality of it. So teachers who kind of say, okay, well, I made that referral, did you? So we talked earlier about, you know, just sending a simple little thank you, saying, yes, we got your referral. So they're not like, well, I filled out that paper, did anybody do anything with it? I have no idea. Finding a way to, we can't really tell them all the details, but I will tell staff teams that you can at least let your staff, if they come to you and say, hey, I made a referral, it seems like nothing's happening with this kid, what do I do now? And letting them know that I can't maybe tell them, but I can say something like, I can't move forward with that. That's kind of a code word to the faculty of parents probably didn't sign permission for it. Can't come right out and say that, but I can just let them know we're not moving forward on the process right now. But if you have more concerns, make another referral. Because you know what, by the third referral that year, maybe that parent's willing to sign permission and move on with that process. We have just About 1 minute left, I just want to talk a little bit. I am certainly not an expert on integrating SAP and PBIS, and I know that's a challenge for a lot of schools, but there is a really great document. I have it in the resources of your handout. Just in June, they put out a whole article about how to integrate those two systems and the overlap. So if you are struggling with that in your school, I highly recommend going and checking that out and looking at that information of how can we kind of integrate and put those two together or keep them separate or however we're going to do it in our building. And I think that is pretty much it. So does anybody have any questions?
So kind of to the same topic, what would you say would be the major differences, or what would someone know that's previously been on a secondary SAP team that is different about elementary SAP?
Well, I think sometimes the process looks a little different in an elementary school. Secondary, it's, I know I have a lot of teams struggle with, well, secondary we can do assessments. And we don't typically, if you have like an agency liaison, we don't typically do that at the elementary level. So kind of understanding where the process is, but at the elementary, it's kind of connecting the parent to what those services are. Because really at the secondary level, if you have someone coming in to do like a behavioral health assessment and drug and alcohol assessment with your student, they're just connecting them to services. So at the elementary level, we can do the same thing. And we're just doing it with the parent and saying, okay, here's what your concerns are, here are the resources, here's what you can use, whether it's our school-based counselor, here's outside counseling, here's Big Brothers, Big Sisters, whatever it is. And I find at the elementary, that's probably the biggest difference, is that there's more needs for the family. That happens at secondary too, but a lot of the things are, it might be connecting the parents to services because that helps the whole family and helps those younger students as well.
So we're gonna honor their time.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to stay behind and talk to us, we'll be
Yeah,
right
we're
here.
absolutely welcome.
For everybody else, thank you so much. You were a great audience, and it was a pleasure. Thank you. Make sure you get scanned.